Figured, well, this has got to be something that's political, you know what I mean? When I called and I started talking to them and stuff, and they were telling me that, well, it just takes time and all this. And I said, well, you knew who the president was going to be November 8th. I said, there's no reason why you shouldn't have had a picture prepared, you know, so that when one comes down, the other goes up. I said, that's how it was when I was in the service. You know,
Joseph,
that's how it was done.
The good news is the VA has said that going forward, they will put up unofficial photos until the official photo comes out. Good news to you and everybody else. Joseph Jones, thank you very much for your service, sir, and thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you very much. Yeah, thank you.
You bet. More in a minute.
Some headlines now. Terrifying video showing a news crew cheating death by a split second as an ISIS suicide blast goes off. Watch.
What?
Wow. Sniper fire first going off as the crews from Sky News takes off running, hiding inside a dark van on the front lines in Mosul. The explosion happening seconds after. No one was hurt. A more horrifying video, this one of the moment a BBC crew barely escapes an erupting volcano. It's so much better being a studio anchor. 8 people, including several tourists, racing down Mount Etna in Italy, trying to outrun the flying lava. It is tough. Lava's quick. Amazingly, no one was seriously hurt. Ainsley.
Thank you, Brian. It has become a pattern all across the country. Students protesting the president, and they're shutting down conservative speakers. Watch. So why are these students flipping out and demanding rights that they already have? Here to weigh in on this is Allie Stuckey. She's a blogger at the Conservative Millennial. Good morning to you, Allie. Thanks for joining us.
Good morning, Ainsley. Thanks for having me.
Of course. So why are college students flipping out like we see in some of those video pieces?
Oh, my goodness. Well, there's lots of reasons for that. I think one reason is that college students are very emboldened by this idea of moral vigilantism. Right now, liberal millennials especially feel like they're on the right side of history, that they're defeating fascism, that they're standing up against this evil dictator. They don't see their riots and their protesting as division or as chaos or as vitriol or even as violence. They see it as doing the right thing. And I think that's honestly what makes it a little bit frightening, and that's why it's a little bit difficult to reason with them logically.
Why do they feel, Allie, entitled? Where does this come from? Who's responsible?
I think they feel entitled mostly because the past 8 years they've been able to get the things that they want. Then we had a candidate, Bernie Sanders, that said you deserve all of these things like free college. And then you have someone coming in, someone that they didn't vote for, someone who supposedly stands for things like bigotry and racism, all the things that millennials say that they stand against. And they feel entitled to speak up for this. Of course, we see the hypocrisy in this, that they're standing up for tolerance, they're standing up for love trumps hate, they're standing up apparently for freedom, but they're also using intolerance to shut down the freedom of other people's speech. And I think that's the scary duplicitousness of
They want tolerance until they realize that you don't agree with them. So what is your message to them when they do call President Trump, when they say he's racist and they say that he doesn't understand them? What do you say to them?
I say, where are your facts? What are the actual policies that he has implemented or that he's planning to implement that you actually think are racist or unconstitutional? So much of what Donald Trump has done is well within his realm of discretion, his realm of authority, as is stated by the Constitution. And if they can come to me with actual facts of why Donald Trump is stepping outside of his bounds, that's one conversation. But just to re-quote sensationalized headlines that Donald Trump is enacting some Muslim ban because he doesn't like Muslim people, that's not good enough to me. There's not enough substance behind that.
Yeah, real quickly, shouldn't we expect this, though, Allie? I mean, most college students are liberal. They've just gotten out of their parents' house. They haven't made that first paycheck yet. That's when usually they change as they get older and they start paying taxes. They realize they're paying a lot to the government. But shouldn't we expect this at this age?
Yeah, you know, probably a little bit. I think it's worse than it was 8 years ago, even a few years ago. I mean, I was in college in 2012. There was an election then. I remember being disappointed that Barack Obama won. I don't remember rioting. I don't remember protesting. I don't remember calling people who voted for Barack Obama a bigot or, you know, any other name like that. But I do think that there's also a shift in indoctrination of college professors. So I think rather than teaching students critical thinking skills and saying, okay, here's what the Constitution says, here's what the travel ban actually says, you can go and read it online, what do you think? They're saying, this is how you have to think, and if you don't think this way, you're going to be punished one way or another. And so I think that we see a lot of college-age millennials, that conservatism that you were talking about once you get the paycheck is deferred longer and longer, and it will be interesting to see what these college-age millennials will actually end up being like in a few years.
Allie Beth Stuckey, thanks for joining us. Goes by the Conservative Millennial, if you want to find her on Instagram. Thanks so much. All right, tear down that cross. The PC police back this time going after a tribute to our veterans and a special tribute to all the snowflakes out there.
I've got friends in safe spaces. If you don't go with us, then you must be racist.
It's that one day when everybody in New York is Irish because it's St. Patrick's Day. And today, as we listen to the New York Metro Pipe Band, just one big block over from where we're on 6th Avenue, they have been working through the night on 5th Avenue because that's the site of the biggest St. Patrick's Day parade in the world. Kicks off at 11 o'clock this morning, and they've been furiously trying to clean up from, I think, 44th Street up to 79th Street, because a couple of days ago we wound up with almost a foot of snow.
But by the way, can someone shovel? I don't know if Shepard Smith is up, but we need somebody to shovel in front of the building. You basically need a dog sled to get
better.
Okay, so for everyone who lives in New York, yesterday, traffic was the worst I have ever seen it. It's because they pushed all the snow to the side, so there's only one lane open on most roads. People were trying to get in and out of traffic.
Terrible.
All of my friends took them hours to get from downtown up to the Upper East Side. So I was glad that the snowstorm was we didn't get it this weekend, because a lot of people are coming up for the St. Patrick's Day parade. But they got to fix this. Can they just throw some hot water on the snow?
Well, here's what they do for snow removal in New York City. They take the garbage truck that normally picks up your garbage, and they put a blade on the front of it. So it scoots it over to the side, but then what do you do with the snow on the side? They have to pick it up with all sorts of scoops and stuff like that, put it into a big truck, and then take it out to the river, where they dump it in the river and let it melt.
Right. I'll say this. Just on St. Patrick's Day, it's going to be going up 5th Avenue, right? The first St. Patrick's Day parade was?
I don't know. When?
In Boston. Right around the 1700s. In Boston, not even in Ireland. Do you believe that?
The event here in New York City is bigger than anything they've got in Ireland.
All right,
it sounds like you're bragging.
We're gonna have a trivia contest coming up so that we can test your knowledge of St. Patrick's Day. It is March 17th, and Jillian has some more headlines for us. Good morning.
I do. Good morning, guys. It's nice to see everyone agree. So we've got some breaking news this morning. Incredible video just in of devastating mudslides happening in Peru. A woman caught in the danger. You can see the woman trying to claw her way out of the muddy debris. She was eventually rescued and is thankfully okay. The terrifying scene unfolding after 3 days of solid rain. The extreme weather expected for more than 2 more weeks. And breaking overnight, a cop killer may be off the streets thanks to bombshell new evidence. Raymond Durham, a violent and well-known offender, is accused of ambushing 2 police officers in Detroit Wednesday night. Authorities now say his DNA at the crime scene is linked to the murder of Wayne State University officer Sergeant Colin Rose. He was killed execution-style last November, if you remember that. And faith is coming under fire at a memorial dedicated to our nation's veterans. An atheist group now sparking outrage, demanding a wooden cross be taken out of a city hall building near Orlando, Florida. But the mayor of Longwood is firing back, saying it's staying right where it is.
It's a historical honor that was bestowed upon those folks, and so we believe it has every right to be in City Hall.
The cross is part of a Vietnam memorial donated to the city. And liberal snowflakes hiding in safe spaces now have their own country song.
I've got friends in safe spaces. If you don't go with us, then you must be racist.
Two comedian country stars taking a stance for conservatives in America with a tribute to snowflakes everywhere with this song called Friends in Safe Spaces, a political spin you might recognize on Garth Brooks' famous song, Friends in Low Places. So far, they've racked in over 100,000 views. And those are your headlines on this frosty, frosty morning.
Thank you very much, Jillian. We're outside our world headquarters where, as you can see, Tullamore Dew, the
with the
Irish
Metro
whiskey,
Pipe Band.
They
Look at
built
this guy.
a fake pub for St. Patrick's Day.
Right.
And it's delightful.
But you guys are real, right? Yeah, absolutely. They've got their drums.
There's a story that is blowing up social media
That's
because
right.
everyone loves to talk about that 5-second rule. You know, you drop food on the floor, you have 5 seconds to pick it up and eat it,
Yeah.
and there's no bacteria on it, allegedly.
Yeah,
Supposedly.
Aston University does this study, and they want to find out, is it really healthy? The only way to do it is if something drops on the ground, is it still okay to pick it up and eat it? Or is it a 30-minute rule? The answer is, depends on what you drop.
That's right. If you drop, let's say, a sheet of lasagna pasta,
That's cooked.
that's
and
cooked,
sticky.
it's slimy, and it's soft, and it's going to absorb more bacteria.
Probably don't eat that.
But if you use a hard food, and they suggest like a bagel, something like that, there's a
Toast, biscuits,
possibility
cookies, chocolate.
you could actually put this could fall on the floor, and it would be safe from bacteria a half an hour later.
30 minutes.
Half an hour.
Right,
let's
because it's
test it.
rigid. However, if it's butter and you put it face forward, you got 5 seconds
if you-
because ants and bacteria, bugs will run to it.
Yes. They say if it's dry, 30 minutes. If it has butter on it and it falls face down, do not eat that.
But this is dry, so because you are all our guests here today, we're not going to ask you. Anybody on the crew want to actually test this?
I think Brian
You
should.
didn't have a 5-second rule?
Dizzy, we know Brian's not going to do it. I bet
there's a guy
should do it.
over here who's suggesting he would do it.
You'll do
we
it?
can't do that probably for liability reasons. It would have to be one of us.
All right, for one thing, we have to tell you, if you're out there saying, well, if something hits the floor, I don't need it, you're lying. Because according to this study, 87% of human beings have eaten something after it hit the floor.
Here's what we're going to do. Because the floor here, even though it looks dry, it's extremely slippery. So this bar, which we have no idea where it came from, let's go ahead and drop it here. Because the surface has got to be dry.
I think you should put it on the floor.
It's wet.
I know, but
I'll eat this one. Ainsley?
No.
Ainsley's going to eat that.
I don't like hair. If like,
hey guys, show of hands. Have you eaten something that hit the floor?
Of course.
Of course you have.
In half an hour?
Hold on. Raise your hand. Would you eat wet pasta that hits the floor and stays there for 5 seconds? Would you eat that? Anyone?
No, that's it. Absolutely.
That attracts bacteria and hair and dirt.
We're coming out in a half hour. We're going to eat both these things. We're going to find out if we get some type of
Ainsley's is right there. Mine's right here.
I'm eating this one.
And to wash
You
it down,
ordered it on the floor.
And to wash it down, we have a little of Tullamore Dew, single malt. Is that what you prefer?
That's what I prefer. Thanks for doing that for me.
At my house, they call it Daddy's medicine.
Whiskey.
All right, hey guys, you want to do another number?
Yeah.
Just hit it.
1, 2.
You see what we're doing with our military. Bigger, better, stronger than ever before. You see what's happening. And you're already seeing the results. Our budget calls for one of the single largest increases in defense spending history in this country.
That was President Trump proudly touting his plans in Nashville to boost military spending, and his plans to rebuild the military also getting praise from a person on Hillary Clinton's VP shortlist, Admiral James Stavridis, who actually went to Trump Tower when he was president-elect, former Supreme Allied Commander for NATO and co-author of this new book, The Leader's Bookshelf. Admiral James Stavridis joins us right now. Admiral, that must have been music to your ears over in Nashville, pun intended, but is it enough for you?
I think we're going to have that as a minimum, a floor, if you will, and we've got to spend it in the right way, Brian. We've got to put that money against, first and foremost, readiness, repairing our ships, restoring the capability that has been somewhat degraded over the last decade in these wars. And then secondly, we need to do the 21st century purchasing of unmanned vehicles, cyber security, something we all understand, and special forces.
$54 billion. They say it's only 3% more than President Obama was going to spend, a 10% increase of the $605 billion. Admiral, you saw it from the outside as Supreme Allied Commander, from the inside as you grew up through the military. Don't we need an efficiency expert? Don't we need to pay attention to what that commission put out, that the Pentagon is wasting billions of dollars?
You know, what you're talking about, Brian, is a report put out by the Defense Business Board that came up with tens of billions of dollars of real savings that could be made, if you will, in the back office. This hit right at the end of the last administration, never got traction. It's something I would recommend to my good friend, Secretary Jim Mattis, take a look at.
All right, let's talk about what's happening today. Angela Merkel, of the Chancellor of Germany, meeting with President Trump, at which time she has pledged to go up in her defense spending from 1.3 to 2% of the defense budget. Yep. Is this the first president that's truly got the attention of our NATO allies when it comes to spending like we're spending?
I think it's fair to say that every previous president has banged on the Europeans to get to that 2% level. This is the first time that we've seen in the last 20 years when they're reaching up for it. That's a good thing. You know, when I think about the list of books in the Leader's Bookshelf, one of them is Team of Rivals by Doris Kearns Goodwin. I think that Angela Merkel and Donald Trump are not going to agree on all the issues. They are rivals in a certain sense with a different view of the world. But this is an example of how they can come together and work together. It's a good thing. It's a good thing. And the big topic that'll come up, as you know, he has said some things about Angela Merkel ruined Germany by letting million refugees come in who are basically unscreened. We see the problems that they're having over in Belgium, see the problems they're having over in France. And then we see another problem called Russia. How do you hope the president and Angela Merkel, what do you think could emerge that would make you, Admiral, hopeful for to hold off Russia in the region? I think we need two things. We're going to need to continue to keep the sanctions on Russia in response to their behavior in Ukraine, the annexation of Crimea. And I think the two of them, Merkel and Trump, can do that and ultimately push toward an agreement that will sort out the southeast portion of the country, the so-called Donbass region. The second thing the two leaders can do is focus on cyber security and pressure Russia to step back from its continuing cyber attacks into the United States. We just saw the most recent against Yahoo. Goes back to our election. Those are two issues I'd like to see our two leaders tackle together. The name of the book is The Leader's Bookshelf. Admiral James Stavridis coming to us from Tufts at the Fletcher School. Thanks so much for joining us, Admiral. Thanks a lot, Brian. All right, coming up straight ahead, the White House going on the offense to defend the president's budget.
The elderly. You're only focusing on half of the equation, right? You're focusing on recipients of the money. We're trying to focus on both the recipients of the money and the folks who give us the money in the first place.
Is the media on the same page as the American people? We're going to report. You're going to decide. You saw that battle right there. And Facebook putting the cuffs on the cops.
Facebook is refusing to allow police departments to use its data to monitor protesters and activists.
But should security trump privacy? Let's talk to Kurt, the cyber guy, who joins us right now. Where's this coming from?
It's a tightrope, isn't it? I mean, there's this balance, and especially Silicon Valley and big companies, social media especially, Mark Zuckerberg at Facebook coming out saying, hey, whoa, wait a minute, to all their third-party partners that use the data from Facebook, saying, hey, don't use that for law enforcement unless we say so. So they're pulling the reins back in there, and they just can't win on this one. They're never going to win, and the reason is this. You know how you have a guest come over to your house, and you're fine with them staying with you. You love them being there. But when they invite another guest over, you don't like that at all. And that's how Facebook's feeling this morning. However, they will not win, because if you're protecting the privacy of your users, you're also then not being very patriotic. You're not looking after the security of America. And if you then start to participate and give out a lot of private information without its users knowing, well, then Facebook loses with users, and the loyalty's not there anymore. People will just bail on it.
Sure. What happened in the past where Facebook is now taking this stand?
Here's what happened. So there's an overall trend that's happened in Silicon Valley with all the companies that we use on a regular basis for our email, for social media, for search. And what happened is, a long time ago, there was a quiet understanding that it was the right and patriotic thing to do was to help out mainly our national government to protect our country from the evils of the outside, mainly.
Absolutely.
Well, that seems all good and well until organizations came about and started to reveal that, including WikiLeaks. So that happened, and people went, wait a minute, you're doing what?
I had no idea that Twitter was sharing all that information.
And at the same time now, while it may already be in the fine print of everything that we use, none of us read it, so we act very shocked. So what happens is people backlash against Silicon Valley companies, and up comes a new startup, and they steal the audience away.
What are they afraid of? They don't want to be involved in an investigation?
They don't
What's the
want
worst
you
case
and I to
scenario?
stop using them.
Got it.
That is the number one concern, is it comes down to the wallet. It's always about the money.
And what stands out is that San Bernardino couple that gunned down those innocent people at a Christmas party. So we need to open up that phone. And basically, Apple said no.
Well, Apple was, it's a different argument, but that has to do with
encryption.
Apple has built a system by which they cannot be asked the question.
Right.
They can't see into your broom closet to reveal what's in there.
But it's the same thing as companies don't want to release their information about their customers.
Even if it helps fight the war on terror.
True. And at the end of the day, everyone's right and everyone's wrong. Nobody wins on this one because, A, we don't get the information we need to protect the country. We don't get or the bad guys if it's something domestic. And at the same time, you and I and everybody else go, wait a minute, what information do I have with you? What are you doing with it?
If a jurisdiction gets a court order and serves it to Facebook and says,
you must.
You got to open it up.
They will. They will, of course. They're compliant with that. They have whole departments for that. But what this is all about now is just another reminder that there is this just dichotomy going on.
Number one story.
There's no win with data. And they're simply caught in the middle of it all.
Right. You know what? I just want to get out of the technology age. I'd like to go back.
You want a rotary dial phone.
What era would you go back to?
Yeah, you want your Trapper Keeper, your rotary dial phone, the horse.
Tape.
I like Petticoat Junction when you have to walk up the telephone pole just to answer the phone.
That's
that was
how
Green
it's
Acres.
right.
That was Green Acres?
That was Green Acres.
Was it?
Yeah. Petticoat Junction, everybody was always swimming up in the water tower.
Well, that's right.
Oh, yeah. That's not sanitary.
Yeah.
Right.
You think, talk about the bagel out on the wet street.
Right. That's the age you want to go back to.
We're going to eat it in about 5 minutes.
Thanks, Kurt.
Coming up on Friday telecast, Geraldo, Ed Henry, and Judge